Hi, everybody, and welcome back to the KK Zone. As always, I am Kara Kaufman, your host, and I have company again today. I was lucky enough to chat with Leo, an excellent Philadelphia Phillies fan, about his team. The Yankees and Phillies play 2 games this afternoon and tomorrow afternoon, and I learned a ton about their squad, some of their players. Leo told some really good stories I'm sure you're going to get a kick out of, so I hope you enjoyed this as much as I did.
Leo, hi. Thank you so much for joining me today. We are here to talk about the Phillies, and you are the expert.
Hello, yeah, I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about Phillies Yankees. Should be a fun series.
That is true. Two teams that are all over the place. So we'll see what they do against each other. But before we get into any of that, I want to start off just by asking you, how did you become a Phillies fan?
That's a that's that's a good question because I live in Toronto. Lived here my whole life, and so I get asked that a lot. But when I was just becoming a baseball fan, I was maybe like 5 or 6 years old, and there was there was this sense in Toronto that we hated the Blue Jays around that period of time. That was like the opinion I got at like 6 years old was like, oh, the Blue Jays suck. We hate them. Probably because they'd been playing really terribly for years. And I wanted to like baseball, and I was like, well, I can't like the Blue Jays. So I went to pick another team, and my mom's family is from Philadelphia, so I went with the Phillies, and I've been following them ever since.
Wow, that is so interesting. So, did anybody else in your family also jump on the Philly bandwagon, or are they Toronto fans?
My older brother's actually a Yankees fan. He was born in New York, so he's a Yankee guy. And really, the rest of my family doesn't follow baseball too much. So it's just me and my brother, the Phillies and Yankees fans in Toronto.
Wow, that is actually fascinating. You must have to find the really niche sports bars you can find other fans of your team because I imagine there aren't that many.
Yeah, I don't run into many Phillies fans here. It's easy to find Yankees fans anywhere. And like even at the Rogers Center when the Blue Jays are playing the Yankees, you feel like there's just as many Yankees fans that have driven up as there are Blue Jays fans. But yeah, Phillies is harder.
But that's fun. That makes you super unique. And also, if you're gonna follow a team that's not that easy to follow in your hometown, that means you're really dedicated. So props.
Thank you very much.
So let's talk about those Phillies then. So looking back for 1 second at last year before we go on to this year, last year was such a crazy year for every possible reason, and the baseball season was meh. I mean, it happened. I'm glad it happened, but like it was so bizarre. I feel like the takeaways are limited. But with that being
Yeah.
said, I'd love to talk about it briefly anyway, because the Phillies went 28 and 32 last year, which was good for third in the NL East. It wasn't that close at the end. It ended up being they were seven behind Atlanta and three behind Miami, of all things, which meant that they missed playoffs by a little bit. And I don't know, as someone who is aware of the Phillies but doesn't watch them regularly, I went into last year thinking they made some good moves and I thought they were going to really, take a step forward in the National League East. Didn't totally happen, but of course it was a crazy year, so who knows? So, but from your perspective, watching every day of 60, what did you see?
Mhm.
What, if anything, stuck with you?
Well, if I think if you ask any Phillies fan about the 2020 season, the first thing they'll bring up is the bullpen,
Yes.
which was a historically terrible group. I don't remember the exact statistics, but highest bullpen ERA since in like the 1920s, I want to say. So it was a bit of a disaster, and we knew going into the season that the bullpen was going to be bad, and it sort of seemed like their plan was just we have a good lineup, we have some good starting pitchers, we'll just let the bullpen be what it is. And it just ended up being a worst case scenario. And as I think if the bullpen had even just been not even average, but just not a disaster, they would have been a 500 team, and that would have been good enough for the playoffs in the expanded 2020 season.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
but
like even regular bad instead of a literal dumpster fire would have made a huge difference.
yeah, well, I think I saw somebody pointed out on Twitter the other day. I wish I could credit him, but I don't remember the name. But it was after the Phillies had played 60 games, they were 29 and 31 this year, and that would have been good enough to get into the playoffs. last season. And if you look at it, their bullpen right now is about 20th in baseball in terms of ERA. So yeah, we were right. If the bullpen had just been normal bad instead of disgusting bad, would have been good enough.
Yes, that I remember from what I did watch the Phillies, because the Yankees did play them last year since we're in our little Eastern corridor situation. I do remember the bullpen being horrendous, and that's what I remember. But I think the follow-up to that is, what did they do in the offseason? And I have a list of what I think they did. And if you're game, I'm just gonna run down real fast what I think happened, and you can tell me what I missed. I'm sure there'll be things, and then what stuck out to you about these moves. So right off the bat, the two biggest things I think they did were they re-signed Didi Gregorius, the shortstop, and JT Realmuto, your all-star catcher. Huge moves, really great. They also made a trade for bullpen help in Jose Alvarado from Tampa, who's known to have a great bullpen. This is going to be in weird order because it's kind of chronological-ish. They they signed Ronald Torreyes as a free agent, and more bullpen help in the form of Sam Coonrod, Archie Bradley, Matt Moore, Chase Anderson, who's really a starter, I think. They signed Matt Joyce, the left fielder, Brandon Kinsler, another bullpen guy, and then some Travis Jankowski, outfielder, and Brad Miller, who I thought was a shortstop, but have since learned plays every position on the field. So a lot of ads there, as you expect, definitely some pitching ads. Who they lost now was Tommy Hunter, who I forgot was with them, who's with the Mets now. Brandon Workman, who was a mess with Chicago and now is back with Boston. Jay Bruce, I also forgot was with the Phillies, short-lived time with the Yankees and then retired. Jake Arrieta, who they lost in free agency, and then Jose Alvarez, not to be confused with Jose Alvarado, different people, but both pitchers. And then David Phelps and Cole Irvin, who is a starter now with Oakland. A lot of pitching moves, as you'd expect, and then a couple of other big ones. What do you think?
Yeah, there's a lot to say about these guys. I guess I'll start with Realmuto just because that's the biggest one. I mean, that I think simply put needed to happen. If the Phillies were going to have any chance to compete this season, he was the only like difference-making player that fit with their roster and it made sense for them to sign. And so I'm very, very glad that that happened. Yes, we're glad to have him, and he's doing great once again this year. Then in terms of all the pitching moves, the Phillies have their first three starters, Zach Wheeler, Aaron Nola, Zach Eflin, were all really good last year. They're all good again this year, and they just needed some guys to fill out the back of the rotation because they didn't really have a 4 and a 5. And so that's what they signed Matt Moore and Chase Anderson originally to be in the rotation. And they're both now like mop up bullpen guys. Neither of them lasted very long. And I think at the time we all saw them as like low risk, high reward moves. They signed for a total of $7 million, so not very much. And they both had in the recent past some good seasons, and there was high upside to them, and that has not worked out. And my line on those moves is like, that's fine. It's fine to miss on those guys as long as you then try to solve the problem. And right now we're at the stage where we don't know if they're gonna solve it. We don't know, or if they're just gonna like, there could be a point where Chase Anderson is starting again for the Phillies this year, and that would to me be like waving a white flag of failure. Other free agent moves. So yeah, we saw Jose Alvarado, who you mentioned from Tampa Bay. On the one hand, I think a reliever from Tampa Bay sounds like a really good thing because they're just constantly pumping them out. On the other hand, my thought was, well, if Tampa Bay wants to get rid of him, what's the problem here?
Right.
And he has so far, it's flashes of brilliance and flashes of can't throw enough strikes to be worthwhile. Like I've seen him blow 100-mile-per-hour fastballs past hitters, and I've also seen him walk in runs. the other, just I think yesterday in extra innings, he allowed 2 runs to score on wild pitches, and that's what he does. Sam Coonrod has probably been of the little bullpen pickups has been the most valuable so far. He's been surprisingly good considering he was not very good last year for San Francisco, but he's done really well. It's with both Coonrod and Alvarado. They both have their problems. They both have good things about them. They've done well, but they also probably shouldn't be like 2 of your biggest bullpen arms.
Right.
And I think the problem that I personally have with them is I think they're 7th inning guys. They're not 8th and 9th inning guys, which is how the Phillies are using them right now. So that's a lot of thoughts on the various free agents and signings. Was there anyone I didn't get to that you were?
No, those are the ones that stood out to me mostly. I remember waiting for the Phillies to sign Real Muto. I had kind of a pool with some of my friends about guessing free agent signings, and I was 100% positive Real Muto go back to the Phillies, and I was glad to eventually be right. But I remember when it seemed like it was in question, I think Bryce Harper came out publicly and was like, "You need to sign that guy," which when the guy that you're paying a huge contract to, that's your like franchise mainstay at this point, says that, bad look if you don't.
Yeah, and actually throughout the whole 2020 season, it seemed like Bryce Harper was running a mini campaign. I think Real Muto hit a home run once in 2020, and the camera pans over to the dugout, and Bryce Harper is just yelling, "Sign him!" into the camera. He posted about it on his social media accounts. He would just like post pictures of them together and say, "At Phillies, sign this guy."
Oh
so he was, yeah, it seems like they're good friends, and he was trying very, very hard to get him back, which I think helped. I mean,
yeah,
if you're like, Bryce Harper is so important to the Phillies franchise that he has a say in what they do. They want to keep him happy.
It's interesting because it seems to me like he's trying not to get Mike Trouted, and as in like being an amazing cornerstone franchise player. Not that, I mean, I love Bryce Harper, but he's not Mike Trout. But still, to be a guy you build a franchise or lineup or roster around. Yeah, I mean, for that guy to exert some sway and be like, "Look, hello, we have to be good. I'm here, so we have to be good." That guy's good. I mean, cool for him that he's using his influence, and even better that it worked. Because yeah, I think you're right. That was a pickup that they needed to make.
Yeah, well, actually, when Bryce Harper was signed in 2019, he got in trouble for trying to recruit Mike Trout to come to the Phillies when he was a free agent. So that's been a Harper thing since the beginning, is trying to improve the team and publicly calling on the Phillies to get better, which is great.
It is great. I mean, someone has to do it because clearly owners are more concerned about profits sometimes than the best possible way to win. And if you're going to be a guy who's on that team long term, as Bryce Harper is going to be, you want to be surrounded by people who are going to help you win, which it feels like this roster does give them a chance to win. Obviously, as you say, there are definitely some improvements that could still be made, but it's a beginning. Also another thing we didn't talk about was re-signing Didi, and I have to tell you that you have a lot of former Yankees on that team, and part of it is because I know Joe Girardi, as the manager, brought in some guys like Ronald Torreyes, is a great example of a guy that nobody around baseball knows because he's kind of a rando. But any Yankees fan will tell you we love Toe because he's such a little gamer, and like he had some great moments as a Yankee while Girardi was managing. So I feel a little the same way about Didi, which is, I mean, no, Didi was incredible for the Yankees. He stepped into an impossible situation trying to fill Derek Jeter's shoes, and he was, not only was he good, he was a complete delight. He was one of my absolute favorite players on our roster just because he's such a fun guy. I mean, the hitting can come and go sometimes a little bit with him, but I love watching him, and I love just him. I know he's hurt right now, but what are you thinking about Didi on your roster?
Well, he's my favorite Didi moment this year has actually been during the injury. The Phillies third baseman Alec Boehm, I think he's only 24, and he made a really terrible misplay at third base a few games ago. It led the inning to go on and on way longer, and he was just clearly so angry with himself and upset over the whole thing. And then after the inning, the camera pans to the dugout and you see Didi Gregorius with his arm around him, the two of them having a conversation for the entire half inning, Didi giving him advice. And like, that's even when he's not playing, or even if he's not playing well, he brings so much to the team, and just clearly being a delightful human being and a really great veteran to have. Yeah.
That's the guy that I'm like, I want to be friends with that guy. That's the one.
And he's real. I mean, his play has not been good this year, even when he was healthy. He's, unfortunately, but it was really dragging the team down. But we can also hope that, we know he was playing through his injury a bit before he went on the injured list. So it's hopeful that that was what was in the way, and he's going to be back soon. He's on a rehab stint right now, and hopefully he'll be hitting better when he comes back, because he's so great. You want him to be playing every day. Yeah. Although it has been a lot of fun watching Ronald Torreyes at shortstop for the past few weeks. I was really happy when you said that Yankees fans love him, because at first I remember everyone I know in the Phillies fan community was really confused why Joe Girardi was starting this guy so often. There are a couple of young shortstops in the Phillies system that people thought those guys should be getting a chance because they maybe have a higher ceiling, and Joe Girardi kept starting Ronald Torreyes instead. And I love him now. He's done a really, really good job filling in for Didi, and the defense is really good. And he just seems like another really fun guy to watch.
When he was with the Yankees, it was a year. There were obviously a lot of injuries, and he was playing more than you would think. He had a couple big moments, but also in the dugout, they started doing a bit that they called the Tonight Show, where Ronald Torreyes would have like a fake microphone, and he was like being held up by Aaron Judge, and he was interviewing people. It was like the goofiest thing, and they all clearly got on so well. He seemed like a really good clubhouse personality. So I love that he's getting playing time with the Phils, because I think he's just a really fun dude.
I remember hearing about that, and I didn't realize that was him. I kind of want to bring this over into like the Phillies fan community now, because I don't think everyone knows that he's been this fun guy for so long.
Yeah, you should look up the Tonight Show, and there's some fun some social media stuff about it. It's really great.
That sounds great.
Yeah, he also was. I think it was him that he's a pretty small in stature guy, so I think he was the guy that someone would have to would lift him up to high five Aaron Judge just for fun.
That's great.
Oh, and there was one where there's a great photo shoot where he and Judge switch jerseys, and it looks like he's a toddler wearing his dad's jersey. It's hilarious.
Okay, yeah, I know I'm doing this afternoon now, and it's just Googling different Ronald Torreyes Yankees moments.
Highly recommend.
The Phillies third baseman, Alec Boehm, is almost as tall as Aaron Judge, and it's seeing the two of them at shortstop and third base it's very cute.
It's always very funny. I love it. Okay, cool. So that's what the Phillies did. And then, so let's see, moving on to this season, how that went for them. So right now, at this present moment, they're sitting at 30-31, just one game under 500. They are in second place in the NL East. They're 3.5 games behind the Mets, but it's also very crazy because the Mets have played like 10 fewer games than a lot of teams because of a combination of weather and COVID cancellations this year. They actually have the same number of wins as the Phillies have, but they have substantially fewer losses at this point, but they have a lot of ground to make up. So who knows how that's going to go for them. I was looking back at how April went for the Phillies. I noticed they started the season 5-1, and then they swiftly went 1-5 to get back to 500. And it seems like since then they've just kind of been hovering right around there. What's it looked like for you so far?
Yeah, so many of their players are streaky, and I don't know if fans of every team feel that, but it really does feel like the Phillies are abnormally streaky. All of their players have had periods this season of hitting really well and other periods of hitting really poorly. And when a few of those hot streaks line up with each other, the team looks unstoppable. But then there's other times where they can't score a run to save their life. And it doesn't seem to make sense because Bryce Harper, JT Realmuto, Rhys Hoskins, Andrew McCutcheon. They have Gene Segura. They have a lot of guys who, throughout the whole season, their numbers look good and they're well above average hitters, but they just all go through such cold periods, and it drives you crazy because this looks like a team that should be a top offense, and sometimes it is and sometimes it isn't.
Interesting. Yeah, that's frustrating. I felt that way about the Yankees last year. It was like when they were playing well, it seemed like they would never lose again. But when they were not playing well, it seemed like they would never win a game again. Like it really felt that way.
Mm-hmm.
There's been a little bit of that this year, but this year's a whole different set of problems. But yeah, it's interesting that you can see it on the individual player level as well. Because I do remember early in the season seeing that Bryce Harper was off to a crazy hot start, but then lately hasn't been hitting at all, and that's hard.
Yeah, and we don't really know what the injury issue is with Bryce Harper.
Right.
He was playing through some injuries for a while, and then he went on the injured list, and now he's back. But because he's a guy who plays through injuries, you never really know if he's at 100% or not. And so it's so hard to know what we can expect from him going forward because we don't know how he's feeling.
Yeah, tricky. I mean, also the thing that I think is interesting about the Phillies as well is that division that they're playing in that's one where you could really see almost any team winning it, at least going into the season. I mean, I would have originally said, but not the Marlins. But look at the Marlins actually have a they're not trying to win the division this year, but they have a decent roster. And as of today, they're not in last place. They're tied with the Nationals. So like, it just seems as though that division is going to be potentially very tight towards the end.
Yeah, it was, I mean, going into the season, it was supposed to be one of the most competitive divisions in baseball. There was a chance that both NL wildcard teams could come out of the East. Oh, actually, no, Dodgers or Padres. One of them was going to get it. But it was like especially the Mets, Phillies, Braves, Nationals. People were saying any of them could win the division, and the second place team is gonna have one of the wild card spots. And so far, it's been a bit of a disaster. I'm still very scared of the Mets, especially because Jacob deGrom has missed some time this year, and so they haven't even had a full healthy Jacob deGrom so far. I don't know about when some of their other players are expected back, but they have some really good players on the injured list that are coming back soon. Francisco Lindor hasn't been playing well, and eventually he's going to get good again. So the Mets scare me, but the rest of the division seems, who knows how it's going to shake up.
Yeah, I was startled by the Braves, they're one of the teams I'm like, what happened to you? I feel that way right now about the Braves, the Twins, and the Yankees right now. It's like, what's going on? Your roster's good. You won the division last year. Well, the Yankees didn't, but what is happening? And it's kind of, I know guys are hurt on the Braves as well, and that's part of the issue, but that's the one that surprises me because I too kind of felt like the Phillies and the Mets were going to be kind of vying for it with the Braves. I didn't really trust the Nationals. But now, other than the fact that the Mets have a really good way of just spontaneously combusting, the fact that they're playing this well right now with half their roster on the injured list does make a case for them having staying power.
Yeah, I think I haven't looked too closely at the Braves' problems, but I think their pitching has not been what they were hoping. I think they were hoping for Charlie Morton to be really good, and he hasn't. They gave a lot of money to Drew Smiley, and he's not. I was always confused why they gave $11 million to Drew Smiley, and he has not been very good. And then I think the Braves have a lot of good players, but they also, like, you can't expect Freddie Freeman and Ronald Acuna to be the two best players in the league every year. And Acuna is still incredible, and Freeman is really good, but just not the unbelievable level that they both were last season, I think.
So I'm kind of skipping ahead a little bit of my own set of questions, but since we're already talking about the division, I'm curious if you care to hazard any predictions at this moment as to how the East is going to shake out.
Oh.
No pressure.
Yeah, that's tough. Well, my going into the season, I said the Mets were going to win, and I can't. Nothing has happened to make me to change my opinion about that. I I'm this is really hard. I think I still think it's going to be Mets, Braves, Phillies, Nationals, Marlins, which was my feeling going into the season, and I think it's closer between the Phillies and Braves than I thought it was going to be. I thought the Braves would be significantly better, and the Nationals have proven to be worse than I thought that they would be. But I don't. None of the team. There hasn't been enough to really change my opinion of any of the teams. They're all playing somewhat around where I thought they would going into the season. So yeah, Mets, Braves, Phillies, Nationals, Marlins.
All right, all right. So in your scenario here, the Phillies actually are not making the playoffs, probably.
No, I I want to I want to say that they will. I think it's possible. I'm not. I think it's. I wouldn't be surprised if they were the second wild card team, but I don't think it's likely right now.
It's funny. I think right at this precise moment, if the season ended today, like it did last year, I think both wild cards are in the West.
Yeah, well, the Giants have been.
Shocking.
Yeah, I think they're leading the West right now. I think Padres and Dodgers would be wild card.
Which I mean, I would watch that game. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Yes. One thing I will say, and I've been saying this for a while, is that I think the Phillies have a. I would take the Phillies over either the Dodgers or the Padres in the wild card game, just because I don't think the Dodgers or the Padres have anyone who can touch Zach Wheeler right now. Zach Wheeler's. I think the Phillies have a shot if they're in the wild card game against anyone, because I don't think there's anyone other than Jacob deGrom or maybe Garrett Cole who I think can outpitch Zach Wheeler.
Yeah, I mean, I think Zach Wheeler has had that kind of season. I feel like a genius for picking up in fantasy. It's looked really good for me. Feel good about
Oh,
that.
congratulations.
Thank you. Yesterday, single-handedly, he catapulted me past my opponent for the week so far. So thank you, Zach Wheeler. But yeah, I think that's right. I think having in a one game wild card playoff, having a guy like him is a huge advantage. I mean, the Dodgers are probably, I would imagine they would throw Bueller, who's been pretty good, but not as good as Wheeler's been. The Padres are interesting because they have some guys. I mean, but they also have a really strong bullpen. So I can also see a world where the Padres, in a winner take all, would use like 7 pitchers. So who knows? But in any case, you're totally right. Zach Wheeler is a gift.
And I think he's been going really deep into games. I don't have the exact stats in front of me, but like he can pitch 8 innings, and I think in a winner takes all playoff game, I would count on him going at least 8, and that's such a gift for the Phillies.
Yeah. That's amazing. But let's talk about your roster since we're on it. That's on my list of things to talk about here. So again, let me just run through your guys, and you can highlight anybody you want to highlight because you know them well. And there are a couple guys out here I don't really know, especially because of the injuries you have going on. So actually, before that, the injured list. We should get that out of the way, I suppose. Right now consists of Chase Anderson, as well as Brandon Kinsler, who's got a neck strain. Matt Moore with a back spasms, I think, and then Didi Gregorius, who, as you say, is on a rehab assignment, hopefully on his way back soon. And the longer term guys, Sir Anthony Dominguez, who I forgot about, is rehabbing from Tommy John still. Jojo Romero, elbow sprain, which doesn't sound great. And Roman.
He just had Tommy John.
Oh, he did. Yeah. Okay, well, that didn't sound great because it wasn't great, Tommy John.
Yes.
And then Roman Quinn, who's got an Achilles injury, which.
Yeah, and I think it's his second one.
Too. Oh no.
So, yeah, we're worried about him.
I'm sorry. I didn't know that until I looked this up. That's sad. Well, maybe he can make friends with Kevin Durant and learn how to have that apparently not affect your life at all.
That would be great.
Okay, so besides those guys, here's who you actually have on your roster right now. Mm-hmm. It looks like you're carrying 3 catchers, which I was shocked at, but I guess National League Baseball. We got obviously J.J. Romuto and Andrew Knapp backing him up, and then Rafael Marchand, who I did not know, backing them both up. And then around the infield, Rhys Hoskins at first base, Gene Segura at second, Alex Bohm at third, and right now, young Ronald Torreyes at shortstop. And then the outfield left to right, McCutchen, Odubel Herrera, and Bryce Harper. And then the bench guys, Brad Miller, who I was looked at and was like, oh, he plays everywhere except for short and center, which is an impressive skill set to have. But then there's this kid, Luke Williams, who apparently plays every position but catcher, which baffled me. And then Matt Joyce playing the corners in the outfield, and Travis Jankowski playing all the outfield. I imagine he's a true center fielder in his skill set, which is helpful. And that's the position player, guys. Let's pause there and have your thoughts.
Yeah, so the three catchers is not a consistent thing throughout the season, but it's partly just because they're kind of scraping the bottom of their 40-man roster right now with available players, and they wanted somebody on their bench who could hit left-handed pitchers while they were playing the Braves, and Marchand's a switch hitter, and so it was good to have him for that reason. And then so JT Realmuto has to take days off catcher sometimes, but you need him to pinch hit at least once. And Joe Girardi seems very scared to blow JT Realmuto as a pinch hitter and then not have a backup catcher available in case of emergency. So we've been seeing Rafael Marchand come up a lot just so that Realmuto can be a pinch hitter. Realmuto can sub in at first base or something, and there's still a catcher left on the roster just in case. And Marchand he's only 21 or 22, and he's already, I've been hearing that he's major league ready defensively, and he's a really interesting guy going forward. I'm excited to have him on the roster. And then there's Ronald Torreyes, as we've talked about a lot, has just, I think he's been probably having good luck. I don't have his numbers right in front of me, but I think he's hitting maybe better than we would expect him to. But that's great. It means that missing Didi Gregorius hasn't been as big of a problem as it might otherwise be, because Torreyes is hitting well enough. And yeah, Luke Williams just came up 2 days ago. He's been in the Philly system since 2015, and he's one of those guys who he's never going to be a star. But he can just do enough things that he has value to the team. He can play every single position, and I think he's good at most positions. And so if he can just hit well enough to keep his head above water, he's someone who could have a long future in the league. And I think it was his second major league game 2 days ago, he had a walk-off home run. Incredible moment. So he's earned his place on the team for the next little while. Everyone's a big Luke Williams fan right now, as they should be. He seems very nice. His whole family has been at the games. They seem delightful. So I'm really happy with him. I'm trying other stories on the roster. We got, as you mentioned, Travis Jankowski is the sort of backup center fielder. He's mostly been used just as a pinch runner, last resort pinch hitter right now. He got in a pretty terrible caught stealing incident recently, whereas Luke Williams he's the angel to all Phillies fans right now. Travis Jankowski, our other strong defensive bench player, is in the doghouse because he was in between second and third base, and he could not decide whether to go back to second or just run to third. And the catcher came all the way from behind home plate and tagged him in between second and third. And he just stood there.
Oh no.
I feel bad for him, but I was furious too. And it was bottom of the ninth inning. Phillies were down by 1 run, 1 out. He's on second base. And then all of a sudden there's 2 outs, nobody on, game is over. So that's Travis Jankowski.
Well,
I think it's
you're about to play the Yankees, and you should know going in that the Yankees, if you don't already know this, they have made the most outs on the bases this year, and it's like not close. It's been the worst base running I've ever seen. It's a nightmare. Just like everybody. And they also lead the league in double plays against. So yeah, the number of outs on the bases between those two things. It was a really fun chart on Twitter, and the Yankees are like all the way at the up right corner. They've labeled the dot teams that hate base runners, and it does sort of feel like we hate having base runners because we get rid of them left and right. So maybe between Travis Jankowski and our whole roster, we'll have a really terrible base running series that everyone can yell about.
well, and actually, I think Travis Jankowski is the only player on the Phillies 26-man roster who's been caught stealing all season.
Oh,
So Roman Quinn got caught stealing a few times, but of all the active players, yeah, none of them have been caught. So that's an interesting two teams to compare.
yeah.
And well, now you got me hopeful that Real Muto will catch a couple guys stealing on the Yankees.
The thing is, I wish it were caught stealing. The Yankees don't try to steal a lot. It's not caught stealing. It's just that they do dumb things and get. I don't know. The other day, they were in the same inning. Someone got thrown out at third, trying to advance on a wild pitch. Then the tail runner didn't go to second on the play, and then got picked off first. It was like, what are we doing? Like, just stand in the bag, just stand there.
Okay. No, the Phillies do. There's a lot of pickoff attempts. I don't think Aaron Nola or Zach Eflin is pitching this against the Yankees this weekend, but they're both. Sometimes it's exhausting watching them with a runner on first because it's just pickoff attempt.
Yep.
So
well, you might get lucky with the Yanks. So I would not fault you if we're trying, considering it seems to work. Nice. Okay. Well, speaking of pitchers, should we go on to your rotation, or do you have more on the position players?
Oh, well, I was just going to ask if there was anyone else on the roster I hadn't gotten into for the Phillies that you were interested about. But
I think I'm. Oh, I did want to say this. I'm pretty sure with the Yankees being a DH league, it is rare that we would ever have carried three catchers. So I'm pretty sure my memory serves that at one point there's always like the emergency guy, and I'm pretty sure that was Torreyes for a while. So
I think he's been called the emergency catcher for the Phillies too. So you're probably right.
Just saying, he does it all. This is now a Ronald Torreyes fan channel. But okay. But anyway, pitching. Let's move on to your pitching, because that is, as you said, I was looking at your starting rotation, and yeah, those top three, the Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Zach Eflin situation is enviable. Those are three really good guys. And then I could not think who the next two were. And then I looked it up, and it's Vince Velasquez and someone named Spencer Howard, who I have never heard of. So tell me how this has been. I mean, we've talked about how amazing Zach Wheeler has looked. This is probably the best season of his career so far. It's been awesome. But the other guys, how's that been going?
Yeah, so I think Velasquez and Spencer Howard might both be pitching this weekend. And Velasquez has been with the Phillies for 5 years now, and he's unbelievably frustrating because sometimes he's really, really good, and sometimes he's really, really bad. And at the end of the season, it always averages out to like a normal number 4 or 5 starter. And so he gets to stick around because, yeah, like he's a fine 5th starter, but he's just so infuriating because he'll get your hopes up every single year and then dash them. I think in his first 5 starts this year, he had a 2.3 ERA, and he was finally going deep into games. He pitched, I think, 6 innings, multiple games in a row, which was huge for him. And then the last few starts, he was just allowing a ton of home runs, couldn't get out of innings. And so that's what we get with Vince Velasquez. And finally this year, he wasn't supposed to be in the rotation. It was going to be Chase Anderson and Matt Moore, and they were going to be better. And they were both so bad that we brought Velasquez back anyway. Then Spencer Howard is a top prospect, but he's on a very strict innings limit. So he's only being allowed to pitch about 3 to 4 innings into games. And we also don't think he's going to make it out of the summer. Like it, he just, and like they're just going to pull him at some point in the year and say he's done because he didn't get to pitch much last year with no minor leagues, and he just hasn't ever pitched enough innings in a season that they're comfortable just throwing him out there. So it's exciting to watch him pitch, and he's good, but he's not a real starting pitcher. But the fun thing about him so far is that Ranger Suarez has been coming in to relieve him every start. And Suarez has been fantastic so far. He hasn't allowed a run all season. I've been a Ranger Suarez fan for years, and I'm really glad that it's finally working out for him because he's had so many annoying setbacks. He got COVID last year, and he didn't have any symptoms, but he wasn't allowed to leave his hotel room for a month. And he just said that that ruined his season. If you're not pitching for a month, you're done. And then at the start of this year, there was complicated visa stuff with him getting into the country. So he missed all of spring training, and it looked like he wasn't going to be ready. And then about a month into the season, they bring him up, and he's finally been the pitcher that we were told he could be for years. And so he's someone to watch out for. And once Spencer Howard leaves the game, Suarez comes in. The two of them usually combine to still go about 6 innings, and it's been working out so far.
That is fascinating. I am glad to know. I didn't dig too deep here, but I did see, of course, that Ranger Suarez had a 0 ERA, and this late into the season, that's bonkers. But you said he missed a month, so that makes me feel like, okay, the world is not completely bananas, because every once in a while you're going to give up a run. But I'm so glad it's fun when a guy who you think is going to finally puts it together. The Yankees are getting not quite that, but they're having kind of that year with Jonathan Loaizaga, who for years they tried to be a starter, and then he kept getting hurt, and then they were like, he can be a great reliever, but he wasn't consistent. This year he's been great. And it's really fun when there's a guy that's been around that long that finally finds a way to put it together for you. So I'm happy, and I'm glad I probably get to see Ranger Suarez. That should be fun, because in one of these games we'll see him. But then the rest of the bullpen, so yeah, Hector Neris, the closer. And then we talked about Jose Alvarado, the hard throw-in, not control throw-in lefty. And then Archie Bradley, who I enjoy. And then Sam Coonrod, who's been very good. Connor Brogdon, who's not been that great. David Hale, former Yankee, who's been meh. Is that about right?
Yes. I think the biggest problem with the Phillies bullpen is just that everyone's being put in like 2 spots higher than they should.
Yeah.
So Hector Neris is one of my favorite players on the team. He has been for years, but a lot of fans can't stand him, want to get rid of him, because he probably shouldn't be the closer.
Right.
Like if he's the second best reliever on your team, then you have a good bullpen. But if he's the best reliever on your team, it's worrisome. And every other guy after him, it follows the same pattern. I think Brogdon is a really good example. As someone you said isn't having a good year, he's someone who, if you watch, when you watch him pitch, he's good, but he's being put in bigger spots than he should be.
Yep.
This is his second season. He's still relatively new to relieving, and he's being counted on in huge spots when he probably shouldn't be. And if they just need 1 or 2 stud relievers, and then everybody else would look so much better as well. And that's sort of what Archie Bradley was supposed to be. And I love him too, but he hasn't worked out as a pitcher this season. But he's been a lot of fun. He's really great at engaging with fans on social media, which I appreciate. And he started the home run hat, which hopefully we'll get to see this weekend. He bought a Phillies cowboy hat, and whenever anyone gets a home run, they wear it around the dugout, and there's a little celebration with it. So yeah, and I'm enjoying Archie Bradley's presence, but he hasn't been the lockdown reliever that we hoped he would be.
Yeah. I was almost surprised the Phillies didn't. I guess, they signed Didi and Real Muto, which are 2 big signings. So I guess I'm not that surprised, but it did feel like what they wanted to do was sign a big bullpen piece, like a Liam Hendricks, for example. And they didn't. So I guess
there's time. I mean, if they're going to be in it, they could always that a great reliever is something you can actually make a trade for at the deadline if you are in it. So I guess that'll be interesting to see if the bullpen keeps them from being in enough for trade for bullpen piece or not.
Yeah, I really, really think it would make such a big difference to have a guy like that. And in the offseason, I wasn't advocating for them to sign Hendricks because I thought that the bullpen had so many holes that it made more sense rather than spending a ton of money on the best guy to try to spend like to split that up in between three decent guys. But some of the smaller additions that they made, so Jose Alvarado and Sam Coonrod, have been good enough that it really feels like the bullpen is that one stud piece away from being good.
Right.
And so hindsight's 2020, but I do definitely wish they'd gone after Liam Hendricks now.
Dude, I wanted him too, and we already had a good bullpen. I love that guy.
I mean, it would make every single team. He'd make every single team better. You can't have too many relievers.
That is 100% always true. Never too many relievers. Cool. So the other thing I did here was I took a look at where the team, your team stands in terms of other teams by extremely basic measures, not do a deep dive in stats here. I just looked up basically where they stand as a team in OPS compared to the league. They're right in the middle of the pack, right now they're 17th, which says to me that they're a decent hitting team. They're not that home runs are the be all and end all, but they are 20th in home runs. So kind of same, right in the middle for power numbers. And then I was interested in the pitching. And as you said, as a whole team, they are like directly middle of the pack. They're 16th in ERA right now, which again, not a perfect measure, but just a benchmark. But then if you split it up into starters and relievers, their starters are 13th in baseball. The relievers are 21st. So you can see how those three guys being really, really good at the top of the rotations helped a lot, and how some of the guys in the bullpen could be dragging it down a little bit.
Yeah, I think you've pretty much got it exactly with the pitching. They have a few really good players that have been kind of dragging the team forward. Yeah. And I think it's actually the same with the hitting as well. Like in terms of the OPS, Alec Boehm, who is I think third on the team in plate appearances and has a OPS of like 5 something. And before he got injured, Didi was really dragging that down too. And if you had just like average production from Alec Boehm and Didi Gregorius, the hitting would look so much better too. Phillies really this season have been a tale of the good players and the bad players. And so that also means on a game by game basis, aggregated team stats aren't necessarily very helpful for determining how the Phillies will do, because if they have, I noticed this recently that when both Bryce Harper and JT Realmuto play, the Phillies are they're on a 88 win pace. And in games when Harper and Realmuto haven't, one of them has missed the game, which has been a lot so far, they're on a 67 win pace.
Wow.
So it's like if you get Nola, Wheeler, or Eflin on the mound, and if you have both Harper and Realmuto healthy and in the game, it's a vastly different team than if you have one of the lesser starters and if any one of the star hitters is out of the lineup.
Interesting. That's a really cool way to split that up. Thank you for finding that. That tells a story, because as you're talking about OPS, there are 4 guys in your team that are OPSing over 800 right now, not including Williams and Jankowski, who have very few plate appearances, but the guys who have played more than a couple games. It's Realmuto, Harper, Segura, and then Miller, interestingly, which I wouldn't have expected. But that to me, that 4 guys OPSing over 800 is pretty good. But if the rest of the guys are way at the bottom of the spectrum, then you're right. On balance, that's not always going to do it, because you got to have other guys on base to score runs when those guys come to the plate, and it's all connected.
Well, yeah, glad you brought that up. So Bryce Harper has 8 home runs this year. All of them are solo home runs.
Yeah.
No one is getting on base ahead of him, and and the other thing I'm really glad you brought up is Brad Miller, because I'm surprised I haven't talked about him yet, because I'm a big Brad Miller fan right now. He's I was surprised looking at his stats that he's been really consistently good over the past 3 seasons. He's he's not good at hitting left-handed pitching, which is a knock against him and one reason why he's not just a full-time major league starter. But Brad Miller is a really good offensive player, and he has been for long enough that it doesn't look like it's just a fluke or good luck in one shortened season. Brad Miller is a really good hitter, and especially if there's a right-handed pitcher on the mound, he's been a huge asset to the team. And I think he was supposed to just be their top bench hitter, and instead he's been a pretty regular player, and he's saved them in a lot of ways.
That's cool. Yeah, I would never have picked his name out of a lineup to be like, ooh, good. But thinking about it, yeah, he's been just a consistently solid player. And being someone who can play almost every position on the field on the strong side of the platoon means you're going to get your time, even if you're not starting. And then when someone goes down with injury, all of a sudden you're starting and you can start almost anywhere, that will keep him in the majors for a long time.
And yeah, his versatility has really helped him to get plate appearances. If the Phillies were really trying to maximize every win this season, I think he would probably be starting at third base most of the time because Alec Boehm has been so bad. But then your problem is that you don't want to stunt the development of a young guy who was a like consensus top 50 prospect going into last season. He came second in Rookie of the Year voting. Like he's supposed to be a really good hitter. And for the future of the team, they need to let Alec Boehm figure it out. But at the same time, it's like every win counts this season, and they have a better chance of winning with Brad Miller at third base than Boehm. And it's just one of those impossible things.
It's such a hard how you handle the really talented possible future superstar players is really hard because you don't want to put them in a position where they're going to fail repeatedly because that's demoralizing and hurts your team, but you also don't want to send them down to the minors because what they need is to get reps in the majors. And it is, except for the ones like who come up like Juan Soto and all of a sudden are immediate stars, which is so rare, it's a nearly impossible to get right balance as far as I can see.
And I feel like that actually happens a lot to the Yankees. And there must just be so much pressure from that fan base for players to perform. And I feel like a lot of the Yankees' young stars I've heard have struggled in their second or third seasons, and it's tough to decide what to do there.
It's really tricky, and fans don't have patience. And Philly fans, like New York fans, are very passionate and want a lot from their team.
Yes.
And it's hard to watch guys struggle when you're expecting them to succeed. But yeah, from the other side of that equation, whenever I go to the stadium and I hear fans booing their own players, which happens a lot in New York, and I hate it. I'm like, imagine that's you. Just you're trying so hard. And then you strike out because pitchers are absurd and you get booed by 50,000 people in the Bronx. That is not helpful to being better in the future.
Yeah, I know the Phillies fans will do the same thing. I know it's a bit of a joke that Canadians are super polite, but one of my favorite memories from being at a Blue Jays game is watching Marcus Stroman pitch a pretty mediocre game. I don't remember the exact box score anymore. It was a few years ago, but he was not good. He got taken out in the middle of the fifth inning, and the whole stadium clapped for him while he was walking into the dugout.
Love it.
And I was just thinking, like, if this was in Philadelphia, there would not be applause.
Same in New York. Yeah, you would be getting booed, possibly some peanuts thrown at you. Like, no. That's amazing. Cool. So is there anything about the roster that we did not touch on that you think is important to note about your Phillies?
Well, one story I've been interested in this season is Andrew McCutchen.
Oh, yes.
So former Yankees, so another one of those. Yeah, and yeah, the most interesting, the funniest, the nicest, favorite Philly to hear talk. But he's been really, really up and down this year, and we're still trying to figure out what he is, what kind of player he is now, because he was really, really bad to start the season, and everyone sort of thought that he was just finished. I think he's 34 now. He had the really bad injury to his knee in 2019. He was never really himself in 2020, and we thought he was finished. And then he went on an incredible run, and it was like, oh no, he actually can still hit, and he is still an above average player. And then he went on another big slump, and he wasn't hitting, and now he's burst back out of it again, and he's hitting really well again. So we still don't know what to expect from him. We know that he's not finished. We know that the knee injury has not totally destroyed him as a player, but he's just another one of those guys who's been extremely streaky for the Phillies. And I want him to figure it out. But he's either incredible or he's terrible. And it doesn't seem like there's an in between.
That's frustrating. I agree with you, but though he's such a great personality and a good social media follow, and just like all around a guy that I would love to have on my team. But yeah, I noticed how bad a start he got off to, and I was completely baffled by it. And then I kind of noticed they turned it around, and then I lost track. So it seems like he is the Phillies mascot this year, which is to say, streaky AF. But when he's great, he's great.
Yeah, and I mean, you could say the exact same thing about Harper and Rhys Hoskins as well.
Hey.
Luckily, I think JT Realmuto has been relatively solid the whole season. And in 2019 and 2020, he was another one of those guys who would go through periods of tearing the cover off the ball and not being able to hit. But yeah, I think Andrew McCutchen is the best example this season of someone who just can't decide whether he's good or not.
Make up your mind, Andrew, and choose correctly.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. I love it. Okay, anything else that we missed on the roster?
I guess the last important story that I have neglected mentioning because I don't want to talk about it has been Aaron Nola over the past few weeks. I want to just check the Phillies probable pitchers for this weekend. I want to see who they have going against the Yankees, because they've been changing the pitching staff a lot. They have a ton of off days in June, and they keep messing around with their order. So yeah, so now Aaron, pardon me?
No, I just know it's not Wheeler, so I'm happy. Continue.
Yes. So Aaron Nola is going on Sunday.
Ooh.
And he's been having some trouble over the past few weeks. Even when he's having trouble, he's still good. So, which shows how great he's been in the past. But he's been having a lot of trouble getting outs, and he just seems like he's had a lot of stressful and difficult innings recently. And I can't really tell what's different or what the problem is. He's still getting strikeouts. He's not walking a ton of batters, but he's just struggling. And that's one of the big Philly stories right now is something wrong with him? Will he figure it out? And I think this Sunday's game against the Yankees is a good test for him to see if he can figure things out and be an all-star pitcher again, or if there's something wrong.
I hope there's nothing wrong.
It doesn't seem like there's an injury, but it seems like there's something that, he was so good at the beginning of the year.
Yeah, for me, that sounds that something got out of whack mechanically, maybe, or maybe they're just making some bad choices with pitch selection. Because I've watched guys on our team, all teams, go through great stretches and then all of a sudden get to 2 strikes for a while and can't get the out. So it makes for long innings, a million foul balls, can't finish batters, and that kind of thing. Yeah, it's not an injury, which is great, but what is it? And how can we bring it back to what it used to be?
Yeah, and I'm still hopeful. I'm not going to lose faith in Aaron Nola yet, but it's something to keep an eye on.
Okay, well, we'll get to see it on Sunday up close and personal. And although to be fair, the Yankees lineup has not been that challenging to face, so maybe it'll be just a thing to knock him back into being solid. Yeah, I mean, not that I don't love my lineup. I want to be clear. I love my Yankees, but the lineup has been really rough this year, minus this past Twins series, because the Twins. But beyond that,
it's been a struggle. So we'll see against a guy like Mola. That'd be an interesting test for him and for the Yankees lineup, both, because both should be good and have been struggling. So we'll see what happens.
Oh, yeah, that makes for a good story on Sunday.
Sure does. I'm excited for the series. It should be good. All right. Well, if you'll permit me to change tack slightly, I know you do not live in Philadelphia, but have you in fact been to Citizens Bank Park?
I've been there once when I was like 8 or 9. I have fond memories of the ballpark, but I don't know it too well.
I mean, from what I've actually never been, and it is high on my list of ones to go to though, because evidently it is beautiful. I mean, I'm all in, but yeah, I mean, what do you have? Do you have any kind of what your childhood self first impression of that ballpark was?
Well, it's so at that point, the Rogers Center was the only other stadium I'd been to, and I'm sorry to the Rogers Center, but it's really ugly and it's really unpleasant, and but you don't realize that until you go to a better one, I think. And so my memory is just walking into an actual outdoor stadium, and it was during the Phillies' really big run of, I think they had a huge sellout streak. Like every single game was sold out. And I just remember walking into this incredible open space that was packed with people. And there was just so much more energy and passion to the game. And it just felt like such a nice place to spend time, even if you didn't care about baseball, and the kind of place that could make you love baseball if you didn't already know it. And that was that's my memory of being at Citizens Bank Park.
Well, that tracks what I've heard everyone else say about it, who on broadcast and everywhere else, and it is a place I am determined to get to very soon. I'm in New York, so I'm not terribly far from Philly, and it is a very, very upper echelon part of the list places to go.
I think my favorite stadium I've ever been to is still Fenway, but just incredible historic building. But Citizens Bank Park is a close
parks are amazing. I've also not been to Fenway, as people will know if they watch my Red Sox one. That's embarrassing because I was in Boston for 4 years and just never quite did it. Terrible. It's an embarrassment to my life. I've not been to Fenway. So that's also the whole East Coast swing I've determined is gonna happen in the next 2 years. I'm gonna get to all these parks. It's gonna be great.
Yes, no, someday I want to do like an East Coast trip and just go to all the parks around there.
There's so many, and it's so fun, and also cool cities to explore on the seaboard too. They're all like Philly. Also, not that I've been, but like I know they've got good museums. I know they've got good theater, good restaurants. It's the kind of thing where I'd love to go spend a weekend ballpark and not. So it's good to have goals, post pandemic goals. Perfect. But okay, so the other thing I have to say about the Phillies, and this is probably the most recognizable thing about this franchise, is we have to talk about their mascot, because first of all, I just love mascots in general. So I've done this bit with every single person I've spoken to, partially because the Yankees don't have one and I feel kind of cheated out of a fun, lovable, furry creature. But for the Phillies in particular, to me, this is like the mascot when you think of a baseball mascot. And it is, of course, the Phillie Phanatic. Pleasing alliteration in the name, Phanatic spelled with a PH. And this guy is just a gigantic, bright green, furry dude with a cylindrical snout, big round eyes, and these feathery light blue eyebrows, which are hilarious. And I don't totally know what he is, although I did read today that it was because the Padres had some chicken mascot and the Phillies were like, we need one of those. So looking at it with that, he looks not totally unlike a bird of some kind, but also, I don't know. So tell me about your experience with the Phanatic. Do we know what he is? What are your thoughts?
Yes, technically he is a bird. I was very surprised to learn that. He is a bird from the Galapagos Islands, is his backstory. I love him. How can you not? And I think I have an embarrassing amount of Phanatic merchandise. I had a Phanatic pillow when I was a kid. had a stuffed Phanatic that was also like against the Phanatic pillow on my bed. So I'm a big Phanatic fan, and I think the most fun part about him these days is his friendship with Bryce Harper, which is
Yes.
a thing they like to play up, that the two of them are best friends, and they, for the past 3 seasons now, every year on opening day, Bryce Harper has worn some kind of Phanatic themed cleats, and then the next day the Phanatic wears Bryce Harper themed shoes. So this year, yeah, the Phanatic had these shoes with stuffed toys of Bryce Harper sewed to them. It's very cute, very nice.
That's the best thing. I remember that because I did a bit on it on one of my videos because Bryce also, if I'm not mistaken, had two different pairs of cleats because he had the non-game cleats that were kind of like that. They had this like big protruding Phanatic thing, and I was like, he can't play baseball in those, can he? Yeah, fall on his face. And then he had a different game version, also was a Phanatic tribute. I love it. That's the best friendship in baseball.
It's adorable. The Phillie Phanatic has a great Instagram account, and so you can go there and you can see videos of the Phanatic. Like in 2020 when the stadium was empty, sometimes he would just run up into the right field bleachers and try to get Bryce Harper's attention. Occasionally, Bryce Harper will throw him a ball. It's a good friendship.
That's awesome. He I looked up his page and I am going to read you what he writes about his description of himself. I think is what this is. And it is as follows. He writes, overweight, clumsy feet, extra long beak, extra long curled up tongue, gawking neck, and slight case of body odor.
That's funny because like the Phanatic never talks, so it's you never quite know what his sense of himself is. So it's good to get that little bit of character. That's really funny.
He's very round, and I appreciate that because it makes you just like fat animals are cute. You just want to squeeze them, right? They're like there's more squish. So he seems like the most huggable mascot of them all because he's just like got this great green heft and he's fuzzy. The body odor thing baffles me a little bit because, I mean, is the guy in the suit just really like, I'm put out there is that when I get smelly and have this hot suit, it's part of the character? Or is this like they attempt to give the Phanatic body odor? I'm really curious about this.
I really hope that there isn't like an odor they spray on the Phanatic. My guess is it's something just about the sweat. Oh, like hopefully it's only inside the suit. I really hope that you can't smell it from the outside because yeah, he is so huggable, and I think it would kind of ruin the hugs if there was an odor.
You're right. That's a good point. The kids. We want to ruin the noses of the kids.
But one great thing about his size is he has this incredible dance move where he can like almost like a hula hoop, and perhaps because the suit is sort of made with a hula hoop, he can shake his belly around him in a full circle like it's a hula hoop, and that never gets old.
That is so cool. It's like you can, it's like a hula hoop with your own body. It is something a human body is not capable of, but this weird bird thing from Galapagos. As a side note, I love that he's from Galapagos because that is, of course, where Darwin very famously did a lot of his studies on evolution. And I, in college, took a seminar called Darwin's Finches, where we looked at the differentiation of finches over the Galapagos Islands, which is even drier than it sounds, I promise you. But this makes me think this story has some plausibility because we know that because of the geography of the Galapagos Islands, there is some serious species differentiation that can happen there. So you could see how perhaps this gigantic bird type thing could have developed in a place like that that's kind of isolated. So, hey, maybe there are more Phanatics waiting to be discovered on Galapagos.
Well, I'm very glad you brought that up because the Phanatic does have a mother who shows up occasionally. So there's at least one other of the species. Phanatic's mother is fantastic. I highly recommend looking up pictures of her. Yeah. And he has a bunch of friends too called the Galapagos Gang, which they don't show up too often, but there's a bunch of other weird Galapagos birds that he hangs out with. So yeah, there's there's all kinds of strangely evolved creatures from this island that he hangs out with, and it's a lot of fun.
That is thrilling, frankly. I am so excited to go to this ballpark and meet the Phanatic, maybe more than any other mascot, just because he's so fun. And I think, I mean, does he, so obviously he's very visibly present at Phillies games. He is a mainstay. Does he also, he's kind of a prankster also, if I recollect. Is that his shtick?
Yeah, I'm struggling now to remember any particular pranks. The other day he did he walked up to the umpires who were all meeting at home plate before the game, and he just started ejecting them from the game. So that was fun.
That's fantastic.
But he's also very, he's not just a trickster. He's also he's very sweet. He's very caring. He loves the Phillies. An important part of his character is how much he just genuinely loves this team and loves being a part of it, and it's very sweet.
Okay, I love everything about that. Thank you. That was our deep dive on the Phanatic. This is the most important part of these videos for me, is talking about the mascot, because
absolutely.
What else could you love more than a big, fluffy, made-up creature? Nothing. It's the ideal thing. Cool. So before I let you go, I have one more thing, but before I get to that, is there anything else about the team in general that you feel like we didn't touch on that you want to make sure we get out there?
I think we've been pretty thorough. I mean, the story now is whether they can be good enough to be buyers or sellers at the trade deadline, and I think it's ridiculous if they don't at least try to compete with the amount of good players they have on the roster. But there's a lot of talk right now about like the next few weeks really matter. If they can just stay in contention, they'll go for it, and if they struggle, the front office might write this off as a lost season. So that's the real storyline to look at going forward.
Okay, well then go Phillies for the sake of Phillies fans, because it's always more fun to watch your team be competitive and make fun additions and really have a stretch run than not. So I hope that for them.
Me too.
Maybe starting like next week, not this weekend.
Yeah. Okay, maybe we'll split this weekend. We'll compromise.
Honestly, I feel like that's probably the most likely outcome. The 2-game series is probably we're gonna split, and that's fine. That's fine. Awesome. Okay, so if you will indulge me, I would love to play a game with you before we go. It is called the matchup game. And it is extremely low pressure, but basically how it works is I have 4 baseball hats to my left here. One of them is filled with the names of most of the Phillies hitters. The other one has Phillies pitchers, and then the same for the Yankees. And what I would like to do is draw 5 pitcher-batter pairings and have each of us predict the outcome of that potential at bat. And it's hard because our teams play so few games, so the odds of us actually hitting these matchups are kind of low. But in theory, I will track all of these matchups when they occur, if and when they occur. And every time the matchup results in an outcome one of us predicted, that person gets a point. It is over the season. And at the end of the season series, whoever has fewer points owes the person with more points a beverage of their choice next time we're in the same city.
All right. I like those rules.
Perfect. Then let us do it. Now, the last piece of business is, because you are, in this scenario, the home team, you can choose if you prefer to have 3 of the Phillies players be hitters or 3 be batters or 3 be pitchers.
Let's go with 3 Phillies hitters then.
That tracks. In which case, the first thing I'm going to do is draw a Yankees pitcher out of this. And you forgive me because I did not call the Yankees, so I may have to discard some names if they are injured.
Sure.
Let's see what we got. All right. Perfect. Aroldis Chapman, Yankees closer.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
Other than last night, been excellent. Last night, terrible.
Yes.
But other than that, he's been fantastic. And he's going to be facing JT Realmuto. What a good matchup.
All right. I'm gonna be a little boring, and I'm gonna say JT Realmuto's gonna walk. He's done a very good job walking in high leverage situations against really good pitchers. I feel like he walks a lot in the ninth inning, so I'm going with walk.
I think you might be the first person to predict a walk, and I think that's actually a great prediction here because Chapman, while great, will definitely miss the zone sometimes, and in a late situation, Ramu is the kind of guy you might want to pitch around anyway. So I think that's a good call. That being said, I'm going to go with a strikeout just because that's something that he does in about half his at-bats, Chapman, or more. So probably.
And Roberto strikes out quite a bit, so it's a fair.
So we're going with 2 outcomes here. All right, cool.
Okay.
Good. Next matchup, pitching for the Phillies, it is Vince Velasquez.
Okay.
Which we'll see if we see him. Hopefully we see him in the next series.
I think he's on Saturday.
Oh, great. Oh, that works
right now.
Perfect. And we'll see what he'll do against Gleyber Torres, Yankees shortstop.
Okay. Do you want? Should I go first again?
You get to go first the whole time because you're my guest.
Fantastic. All right, then I'll say Torres doubles.
Cool. Do you have a feeling about? Do you want to give it a specific area of the field?
Okay. Not too familiar with Torres. Let's say he doubles over the head of the Philly center fielder.
Love that. That's a fantastic one. A lot of character. I'm gonna go with. I'm also giving Gleyber a hit, but I'm gonna give him a single to left. That's what I'm feeling about Gleyber. Yeah.
Okay.
But he actually does go opposite a lot, so your choice is a good choice. All right. Now pitching for the New York Yankees, it's gonna be. Nope, not that guy. He's not the roster right now. Next, Garrett Cole.
Okay.
There. And he will be facing Andrew McCutchen.
Okay.
Ooh, interesting one.
Yeah. Let's say I think hit for Kutch. Single to right field.
Nice. Yeah, totally. I'm gonna go once again. I'm gonna go with a strikeout here, just because that's the thing that Garrett Cole does the most.
It's completely fair.
I feel like I can see a lot of possibilities here, but in several at bats in the game, I feel like he's gonna get him at least once.
Almost certainly, but I gotta believe in my guys.
I love that. I think that's a great strategy. There's no wrong strategy for this game, but definitely believing in your guys is a great one.
Yeah, I'm hoping to get someone who I can predict a home run for. That's the.
Well, we got. Okay, let's see. First of all, though, the Phillies have pitch next, and they're gonna be pitching with Zach Eflin.
Okay.
Who hopefully we see next time because I'm having this time. And he would face DJ LeMahieu.
Okay. Let's say DJ LeMahieu grounds into a double play.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, not a bad choice given what I've said about the Yankees. He's done it a lot this year. I'm gonna go with DJ turning it around a bit, and I'm gonna give him a single to right.
Yeah, Eflin allows a lot of contact, which has there's been a lot of double plays this year, but also a lot of singles.
And knowing the way this is going, DJ will lead off the game with a single because he usually bats lead off, but he'll come up later in a spot with lots of men on and definitely ground into a play. So we'll both get points. It's gonna be great.
That would be great.
Okay, last matchup. Pitching for the Yankees, it's Jonathan Loaizaga, as we discussed, one of our late inning relievers.
Okay.
And coming to the plate for the Phillies, it's going to be Odubel Herrera.
Okay.
That's some power.
Yeah. No, all three Yankees pitchers have been good.
Yeah, sorry. I swear it's not rigged.
No, let's see. Loizaga, right-handed pitcher.
Yes, yeah. Ojo was lefty, so that helps.
Herrera. Let's. Okay. I'm gonna say a bunt single for Odubel Herrera.
Okay, that is fun. I like that.
He goes for those more often than a lot of guys, so it's a possibility.
Especially because Loizaga does come in the late innings a lot, so it could be a bunt situation. I could totally see that. It's not going to be like second inning. So good call. I'm really torn here because Loizaga has been so great, but also I feel like I've gone with the Yankee person winning each of these matchups, and that feels wrong.
I've had the Phillies hitters win every time, so
You're right. So I should just match you. In which case, I will go with, I'm going to go with a strikeout again. I've literally picked strikeout for all three Yankees pitchers, but in my defense, they're three really good pitchers.
I fully agree with you that is the most likely scenario in any given at bat. I'm just trying not to. If I predict it, it's more likely to happen, so I have to.
There you go. See, there you go. That's a good strategy. That's the manifesting what you want to see in the world in your choices.
Exactly.
So I will track this, and sounds like we probably will get at least some of these matchups, which is exciting. And then I'll let you know what happens. We'll email about it. And I will say this: Toronto is one of the cities I've also never been to that I really want to go to. And having spoken to the Blue Jays fan I spoke to at the very beginning of this season, maybe even more excited to go. So at some point after we can travel again safely and internationally, I'll get up there and I'll make sure to look you up, and we can talk about the Phillies and see the Blue Jays play.
That sounds great.
Fantastic. Well, hey, thank you, Leo, so much for taking the time today. This was a total delight. I cannot wait to watch this series, and hopefully we'll chat again about something in the near future.
Yeah, that would be great. This was so much fun. Thank you for talking with me. It was a really great time.
I'm so glad. Well, enjoy the rest of your day, and we'll be in touch soon after we see what happens in this series.
Absolutely. Goodbye.
Bye.